And I'm Abdullah, your travel partner for this ride. If you're in Kel with one free day, staring at the mountains and thinking, is Shounter really worth that bumpy Jeep track? This episode is exactly for you.
Picture this. Morning in Kel, cool air, a little bit of clouds sitting on the ridges, that typical Neelum silence where you just hear the river and maybe a rooster that woke up too early. We're standing on the balcony of our guest house with chai in hand, and the question is hanging in the air. Do we spend money and energy on Shounter Lake today, or just stay lazy in Kel?
And to be honest, we were tired. The day before had been full. Road from Muzaffarabad, stop after stop, a lot of sitting. So it wasn't one of those hyper-adventure hero mornings. It was more like, Yar, if the Jeep is too rough, my back will complain for a week.
Exactly. So before anything else, we did what I think every traveler should do on a spontaneous day like this, a small reality check. We looked at 3 things. First, weather. Are those clouds just decoration, or is there actual rain coming later?
Second, daylight. We counted hours backward. Roughly, Kel to Shounter is about an hour and a half to 2 hours one way by Jeep, depending on road conditions and stops. So we asked ourselves, if we leave now, can we comfortably be back in Kel before dark without rushing?
And third, health. Has anyone got a headache, motion sickness, back pain, or just that heavy, lazy feeling that says, I should not be bouncing around in a Jeep today? We looked around our group, checked with everyone honestly, and only when the answers felt okay, we said, all right, let's go for it.
Then came the money talk. Not in a stressful way, just clear. We asked locals about typical Jeep rates for a Kel-Shounter return trip that same day. I won't give fixed numbers here because prices change, but we heard a range from a few drivers and picked something that felt fair for both sides.
And that's one tip right there. Don't rely on just one quote. Ask at least 2 or 3 drivers or shops, compare, and then agree on the total amount, whether waiting time at the lake is included and the rough return time, before you sit in the Jeep.
Once we decided, things moved quickly. We actually found our driver near the main bazaar in Kel. You'll usually see Jeeps parked or guys hanging around who know someone with a Jeep. We asked one simple question that made us feel comfortable. Bhai, aap pehle Shounter ja chuke ho? How many times?
He smiled very confidently and said he'd been there many times every season. Then we asked, road kaisi hai aaj? Any fresh landslides or tricky patches? That's your second important question. You want to know what you're getting into that particular day, not based on last year's Instagram captions. Before we hopped in, we packed just one day bag. Inside, water, some biscuits and nuts, a couple of extra layers, a light shawl, basic medicines for motion sickness and headache, and a power bank. Simple, but it made the day feel safe and easy.
Now, seating. This sounds small, but can change the whole experience, especially if you have elders or kids. We gave the most stable seats to the people who feel bumps the most. Usually that means front seat next to the driver or the middle seat in the back, not the side benches if it's an older style Jeep.
I took one of the bumpier spots for part of the ride just to test it, and yeah, if you have serious back issues or you're very sensitive to motion, I would honestly say maybe skip this trip or make sure you get the most stable seat and bring a small cushion or folded jacket to sit on.
Once we rolled out of Kel, the vibe changed quickly. At first, you still see fields, small houses, kids running around, that familiar valley life. Then, gradually, the road starts climbing, the houses thin out, and the valley starts to feel wider and a little wilder.
The Jeep begins to hum and rattle more as the track gets rougher. Stones under the tires, the engine working harder on the inclines. On one side, you might have a steep drop. On the other side, rock walls and occasional waterfalls dripping or pouring down onto the road.
And then you start seeing shepherd huts, simple wooden or stone structures, a bit of smoke from a chulha, goats scattered like moving stones on the slopes. Sometimes kids look up and wave as your Jeep passes. Those little moments, they quietly remind you that this landscape is somebody's everyday, not just your adventure.
Now, for the nervous riders, here's one simple rule that helped us stay relaxed on the narrow sections. Trust the driver and train your eyes. Instead of staring down the drop and imagining worst-case scenarios, look at the road a few meters ahead or at the mountainside. Let your brain focus on the solid, not the void.
Also, it really helps if one person keeps light conversation going. Not forcing jokes, just normal talk. Where you're from, what you've seen in Neelum so far, asking the driver about the valley. It keeps the Jeep from turning into a silent, tension-filled box.
Somewhere about halfway, we stopped near a little waterfall right by the road. Not a big Instagram waterfall, just a thin, cold stream sliding down the rock. We stretched our legs, splashed our faces, and everyone's mood lifted instantly.
These tiny stretch breaks matter. 5 minutes to move, breathe, maybe grab a quick sip of water. They make the bumps feel kinder and the journey feel like part of the fun, not just something to tolerate until the lake.
And then, after those twists and climbs, the road straightens a little, the valley opens, and suddenly, there it is, Shounter Lake. At first, you just see a patch of green that doesn't look like land. Then your brain catches up and goes, oh, that's water.
When we stepped out of the Jeep, the first thing that hit us was the wind. It's cooler up there than Kel, even in good weather, and there's that clean, slightly sharp smell you only get in your high-altitude lakes. Mix of water, earth, and a hint of snow from the higher peaks.
The lake itself that day was this deep green, almost glassy. Not the bright turquoise you see in some photos, but a calm, darker green that matched the slopes around it. We didn't rush to the edge. First, we just stood near the Jeep, looked around, and did a quick safety scan.
Yeah, that's important. At these places, you'll often find uneven ground, slippery patches, little streams cutting across the path. We looked for a clear, wide section of shore where the slope down to the water was gentle and the stones looked stable. That became our walking route.
If you have kids or elders with you, I'd say don't chase the perfect angle for photos near the steepest edge. Pick the safe line. Even if it's not the same spot you saw on social media, Shounter is still beautiful from a few meters back.
We walked slowly along the shore, feeling the ground with each step. A few minutes later, we found our spot. One flat rock with a comfortable backrest from another stone, just high enough to give us a clear view of the lake, but far from any risky edges.
We sat down, opened the bag, and that was our small picnic. Simple chai from a flask, some biscuits, a handful of nuts. Nothing fancy, but somehow chai tastes different when the wind is tugging at your jacket and the lake is just quietly breathing in front of you.
Now, some honest comfort notes. It can get cold quickly by the water, especially if a cloud covers the sun or the wind picks up. Even in summer, you might want a light jacket or shawl. And in terms of facilities, don't expect a full tourist setup. Depending on the season, there might not be proper washrooms or food stalls running.
That means use the washroom before you leave Kel, carry your own snacks and water, and stay flexible. Also, be respectful with any waste. Carry your wrappers back. Places like Shounter can lose their magic very fast if everyone leaves a little "just this once" trash behind.
One more thing we noticed. For the first 20-30 minutes, everybody was in camera mode, posing, boomerangs, videos, trying different angles. And then there was a moment where it all felt too noisy. Not in the valley, but in our heads.
So we did a small experiment. We literally said, okay, phones down for a bit, put the cameras away, zipped them in the bag, and just sat. No talking for a while, just listening to the wind and watching the water. That's when Shounter really arrived for us.
If you do this trip, try that. Take your photos, of course, make your memories, but gift yourself at least 10 minutes of just existing there without recording it. That's where the lake goes from location to actual memory.
Now, timing the return is crucial. Up at a place like Shounter, you can lose track of time because the light is so clean. We had agreed, even before leaving Kel, on a strict turn-back time with our driver. For us, that was mid-afternoon, early enough to be rolling back into Kel comfortably before dark.
So while we were sitting there, we kept an eye on the sun on the ridges. When the light started sliding off the higher peaks and the shadows stretched a little longer across the slopes, we knew our one last photo window had opened.
We stood up, took a few final shots, said our quiet goodbyes to the lake, and walked back to the Jeep slowly. No rush, no panic, just that satisfied feeling that we'd taken what the day was offering without pushing it too hard.
The drive back felt shorter. Maybe because we already knew the turns, maybe because everyone was a little quieter and softer. By the time we began descending into Kel, the sky was shifting to evening colors, and the town lights were just starting to blink on.
Rolling back into Kel before dark was one of the best decisions of that day. We had enough energy left to shower, eat, and sit outside the guest house with another round of chai, instead of stumbling in exhausted with sore backs and tense nerves.
So if we had to turn that whole day into a simple, repeatable formula for you, it would be this. Wake up in Kel, check weather, daylight, and everyone's health. Agree on a clear budget and timing with a calm, experienced driver. Pack one smart day bag. Sit the sensitive backs in the most stable seats. Take the road slowly with mini brakes. At the lake, pick safe ground, keep it simple, and give yourself some full present minutes with no cameras.
And most importantly, respect your limits. If the road looks worse than you expected, or the weather turns, or someone in the group isn't feeling well, turn back without feeling guilty. In mountains, a safe, short story is always better than a dramatic one that goes wrong.
If you're planning Kel and thinking about adding Shounter as a calm, big view extra day, we've put together a small, practical mini plan for you.
Yes, on our website, you'll find a printable Kel Shounter day trip guide with packing notes, rough time estimates, questions to ask your driver, and comfort tips for kids and elders. It's designed so you can just tick through it over breakfast in Kel and decide, without stress, if today is your Shounter day.
So when you finish this episode, head over to our site, grab that mini plan, and keep it ready for the next time you find yourself with one free day in Kel and a green glass lake waiting a valley away.
From me, Sharjeel, and from Abdullah, thank you for traveling with us today. May your roads be safe, your Jeeps a little less bumpy, and your lakes as calm as Shounter was for us. Khuda Hafiz, and I'll see you in the next travel diary.